All right, so we've got another spicy chat log for this deep dive.
Definitely spicy.
It's a real humdinger.
Yeah, it's a philosophical battle royale, I'd say.
We've got Toku making some seriously provocative statements.
Yeah.
Jaggy countering with, like, logic and wit.
Yeah.
Soupy just bringing in, like, a dose of much-needed compassion.
Yeah, they're really trying to, like, hold it down, keep everybody, like, grounded.
Yeah, it's a wild ride, this one.
It really is.
So this conversation, like, immediately, like, kicks off with Toku. Coming in hot with a loaded question.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do feminists only talk about non-existent systemic inequalities in the West
That's right.
while ignoring the very real problems that women face
Yeah.
in places like the Arab world?
Right.
So it's like right off the bat, they're setting this trap,
Totally.
this false dichotomy,
Absolutely.
where it's like, oh, you only care about
Yeah.
privileged Western women.
Yeah, and it's like this thing that we see over and over in these types of debates.
Totally.
It's like a way to oversimplify these really complex issues.
Yeah.
And discredit opposing viewpoints.
Yeah. Like, why even bother engaging if you think that the other side's not even looking at the right things?
Oh, exactly.
But Jaggy, like, immediately doesn't take the bait and calls out Toku's, like, flawed premise and even provides links to feminist organizations that are working in the Middle East.
Right.
So it's like,
do your research.
Yeah, do your homework.
Come on.
Before you come at me.
Exactly.
With these, like, sweeping generalizations.
Sweeping generalizations.
And Soupy kind of adds in and says, you know, even within Western feminism, there can be a lack of focus on certain groups, like heterosexual women, for example.
Right. And I think what Soupy is doing there is so important.
Yeah.
Because they're bringing in this concept of intersectionality.
Totally.
That, even movements that have good intentions can sometimes have blind spots.
Yeah.
And that progress requires constant self-reflection and, like, a willingness to listen to diverse voices.
Yeah, and it's such a good point because like even within like feminist circles, there's all these different subgroups and schools of thought.
Absolutely.
And it's not this monolith.
No.
And then things take a dark turn because Toku drops this bombshell.
Oh, boy.
That the biggest threat facing women is transgenderism.
Wow.
So it's like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
talk about inflammatory rhetoric.
Yeah, just throwing a grenade into the conversation.
Yeah, just like lobbing it in there.
Exactly.
And it's like this reveals this deep-seated fear of transgender individuals.
Yeah.
And like painting this picture of transgender people as this like invading force.
As this other.
Yeah, as the other.
Yeah.
Which is absurd.
Totally absurd.
And incredibly dehumanizing.
Yeah, it's really dangerous.
Yeah.
Because this kind of rhetoric can have real-world consequences.
Yeah.
This contributes to the stigma and discrimination that trans people face and can even incite violence.
Yeah, it's like giving permission for people to act on those fears.
Exactly.
And Jaggy and Soupy, they push back hard on this point.
Of course.
Pointing to more tangible threats to women's safety.
Right.
Poverty, war, climate change.
Right. The real issue.
Yeah, like actual problems.
Exactly.
And Jaggy even goes so far as to say, you can't even properly quantify the casualties that quote-unquote transgenderism causes.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like
putting it right back in their face.
Yeah, where's the proof?
Exactly.
Show me the data.
Yeah.
And Soupy, who identifies as a woman, says, I don't feel threatened by transgender people.
Yeah.
Which again...
directly contradicting Toku's statement.
Yeah, it's like you're speaking for all women.
Right.
When you say that this is the biggest threat. And Soupy's like, no, I'm a woman.
And and I disagree.
I disagree.
Yeah.
But Toku doubles down.
Oh, boy.
And insists that transgenderism is in conflict with women's rights.
Here we go.
And specifically brings up, like, bathroom access and participation in women's sport.
Right, the classic talking points.
Yeah, like the greatest hits.
Exactly. And, a lot of this is based on just a fundamental misunderstanding of sex and gender.
Yeah, it's like Toku's stuck in this rigid binary.
Yeah, this like black and white thinking that doesn't reflect the reality of gender identity and expression.
And Jaggy goes into detail about the difference between sex and gender and like the role of socialization and just like debunking all of these myths.
Debunking those myths.
About transgender women like trying to infiltrate women's spaces.
Right. Trying to like sneak in and take over.
Like it's some kind of invasion.
It's just fear-mongering.
Yeah. And then Soupy brings it back to personal experience and shares this anecdote about being mistaken for transgender and how that experience actually highlighted the ways that transphobic rhetoric can harm all women.
Right, because it creates this climate of suspicion.
Totally.
Where anyone can be targeted.
Yeah, and you know, it's just like we're all interconnected in a way.
We are.
And like, you know, fighting for social justice requires solidarity.
It does.
And understanding across different groups.
We're all in this together. Yeah. It's not us versus them. It's us working together.
So this chat log is already proving to be like a treasure trove of insights. The dynamics of it all.
Yeah.
And the challenges of communicating about complex issues.
Right. Especially sensitive topics.
Yeah.
Where people have such strong opinions.
Yeah, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? I'm like on the edge of my seat.
Me too.
What's going to happen next?
I can't wait to hear how Jaggy and Soupy like counter Toku's next.
Yeah, round of arguments.
Round of arguments.
He's got to have more rights.
Oh, yeah. They've got plenty more.
Okay, good.
And this chat log is like a car crash.
Oh, my gosh.
You don't want to look.
But you can't look away.
But you can't tear your eyes away.
Exactly.
So buckle up. Yeah. Because it's about to get even wilder.
I am ready.
All right, let's do this.
Let's go. So we're back.
Back in the trenches of this chat log.
Toku tries to shift the focus a little bit.
Yeah.
And argues that the whole concept of gender identity is like a modern invention. And they even try to pin it on John Money.
Right.
Who's this controversial figure in the field of sexology?
Yeah, it's like reaching for any argument they can find.
Right.
To discredit this idea that gender identity is valid and real. And it's basically saying like, oh, it's all made up. It's a fad.
It's a social contagion.
Yeah, it's like this social contagion that's going around.
Exactly.
But Jaggy points out that like gender identity
as a social phenomenon.
Predates civilization.
Right.
And they give all these examples of different cultures
throughout history.
Yeah. Who have recognized
and celebrated gender diversity. It's not a new thing.
Yeah, it's not like John Money like woke up one day
and invented it
and was like, I've got a great idea.
I've got an idea.
Let's invent gender identity.
Made this up.
And Soupy chimes in and is like, gender identity is a well-researched topic in academia. Like, please, go read a book.
Engage with legitimate sources.
Yeah.
Don't just get your information from like,
internet forums.
But Toku seems more interested in like
cherry-picking information.
To
confirms their biases.
Yeah, and like throwing out these like really inflammatory terms like chemical castration to describe puberty blockers and comparing gender-affirming care
to lobotomies. Which is just so outrageous. And it's really dangerous. Because it's creating this like false equivalency between like life-saving medical care and these like barbaric practices from the past.
And Jaggy comes in
with the facts. Yeah.
And is like, actually, puberty blockers have been proven to be effective
in reducing suicide rates.
Among
transgender youth.
Yeah, like
this is serious stuff.
This is not just like some abstract.
This is about people's lives.
Yeah, people's lives are at stake.
And it's supported by like
major medical organizations
like AMA, the APA, like all the experts agree
on this.
And it's like, it's not just like
some fringe belief,
some fringe group. This is like
the scientific consensus.
Yeah, the scientific consensus. And then Toku tries to like
cast doubt on the FDA.
Yeah, it would be like, well, the FDA hasn't approved it.
Right.
And Jaggy's like, hold on a second.
It's still under review.
It's still under review.
But it's been safely used for decades for other medical conditions.
Right,
and it's supported by all these other reputable medical organizations.
So it's like you're really grasping at straws here.
Right, trying to find any reason to discredit this.
And then Toku throws out this argument that is so
oh my God.
outrageous that it's like, are they serious?
Right.
They claim that transgenderism is a form of conversion therapy and a systemic genocide against gay people.
Wow.
And they even try to use Iran's policies as evidence.
Right.
Which we all know
is not a great example.
Is not a country known for its
human rights record.
Stellar human rights record.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to demonize transgender people.
By associating them with these practices that are widely condemned.
And Jaggy, of course, comes in.
With the facts. Yeah.
And is like, conversion therapy is the forced attempt to change someone's sexual orientation.
Right. Not their gender identity.
And
it's like,
two completely different things.
You're conflating these two things.
Conflating them.
Yeah.
And Soupy reminds everyone that, like, sexuality and gender identity
are two different things. Yeah.
And it's like,
you can be gay.
Yeah.
And cisgender.
You can be straight and transgender.
Or
you can be
all the combinations.
And it's like,
it's not that hard.
It's not that hard.
Come on. It's like Toku's just refusing to get it.
Or maybe they do get it. And they're just being deliberately obtuse.
Maybe they just want to, like, stir the pot.
Cause
chaos.
Cause some chaos.
Yeah.
Get those clicks.
Exactly.
It's like, this is not a game.
This is real life. Yeah.
This is about
people's lives.
Real people.
Yeah.
And their experiences.
And their rights.
Yeah. It's kind of wild to think about how this chat log we've been dissecting isn't just some random online squabble. It actually reflects like these much larger societal anxieties that we're all grappling with.
Absolutely.
About like gender roles, power dynamics, and how we even define like masculinity and femininity in the 21st century.
It's like we're seeing this cultural clash happening in real time, with Toku representing this more like traditional rigid view of gender, and then Jaggy and Soupy advocating for this more like fluid and inclusive understanding.
And it's so interesting how Toku just kept clinging to those like outdated stereotypes, even when presented with like evidence that directly contradicted those beliefs.
Yeah, it's like they were stuck in this echo chamber, just filtering out anything that challenged their worldview.
Which kind of brings us back to
cognitive bias,
which you talked about earlier.
Right. It's like a perfect example of how our brains are wired to seek out information that confirms what we already believe, even if those beliefs are harmful.
So how do we break through that?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
I don't think there's like an easy answer.
Right.
But for me, it starts with recognizing our own biases and being willing to challenge them.
Yeah, like being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
Exactly. And approaching these conversations with humility.
Yeah.
And a genuine desire to understand.
Rather than just trying to like
score points
or win the argument.
Win the argument, exactly.
And, you know, like Soupy sharing that anecdote about being mistaken for transgender.
Yeah. Such a powerful story.
And how that experience like highlighted the impact of that transphobic rhetoric.
Yeah.
It just shows how important it is to listen to the lived experiences
of people who are different from us, because those personal stories help us connect with the human side of these issues.
Totally.
They remind us that we're not just debating like abstract concepts.
Right.
We're talking about real people's lives.
Yeah. And I noticed how Toku kept bringing up Iran and their policies towards LGBTQ plus people.
Oh, yeah. Classic whataboutism.
Yeah, it felt like a deflection tactic.
Totally. Like trying to shift the focus away from the actual issue at hand, which is transgender rights in Western societies.
Right. And it's like,
just because things are worse somewhere else doesn't mean we shouldn't address the problems here.
And we can't forget about that whole tangent about the feminist activist gang.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And their
interesting approach to activism.
Unique brand of activism, let's call it.
It's a good reminder that even within social justice movements, there can be these fringe groups with extreme or misguided views.
Totally.
So we always have to be critical of what we see online.
Yeah, even if it seems like it's coming from a place of like good intentions.
Exactly. We have to separate the wheat from the chaff.
This whole deep dive has been a bit like navigating a minefield of like misinformation and inflammatory rhetoric.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
But it's also been really illuminating.
Yeah, I feel like we've learned so much.
Me too.
About the importance of critical thinking.
Yeah.
Fact-checking and engaging in these conversations with empathy and respect.
Yeah, even when it's tough.
This chat log has been like a microcosm of these larger societal debates
that we're having
about gender and identity.
Yep.
And it just shows how crucial it is to have these conversations, even when they're difficult.
Because that's how we challenge harmful stereotypes and create a more inclusive world.
And that's what it's all about, right?
That's it.
Creating a world where everyone feels seen and heard and respected.
Absolutely.
So listener, keep challenging those assumptions.
Keep learning.
Seek out diverse perspectives.
And use your voice.
Use your voice to advocate for a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
See you later.